My mother-in-law's eyes burned with fury as she pointed a shaking finger at me. "You're a liar. That baby isn't my son's." Her voice was sharp, slicing through the air like a blade. My heart pounded, fear tightening in my chest. "That's not true," I cried, but before I could move, she grabbed a heavy porcelain vase and smashed it over my head. A sharp, searing pain shot through me as the vase shattered, and I collapsed to the floor, blood trickling down my face. My vision blurred, but before everything went dark, the door suddenly burst open. My husband stepped inside. And what happened next was even more terrifying. "My name is Lillian Hayes, and I am 30 years old. I live with my husband, Zachary Hayes, in a beautiful house in Willow Creek, a peaceful suburban neighborhood. Life should be perfect. We have a stable home, and Zachary loves me dearly. But there's one major problem: his mother, Eleanor Hayes. Eleanor has never fully accepted me. She tolerates me because Zachary loves me, but her eyes always carry a hint of disapproval and superiority. She believes I am not good enough for her son, though she never says it outright. Instead, she delivers her judgment through subtle remarks, sharp glances, and forced smiles. Yet, despite her presence, Zachary and I have built a strong marriage. And now, I carry a secret, a beautiful secret that I am about to share with him. That evening, I busied myself in the kitchen, my heart racing with excitement. Tonight was special. I had planned a perfect dinner: Zachary's favorite roast lamb, garlic mashed potatoes, and a fresh salad. On any other night, I would have been exhausted, but tonight, I moved with a different kind of energy. Because tonight, I was going to tell my husband he was going to be a father. I placed the last dish on the table and glanced at the small, gift-wrapped box beside Zachary's plate. Inside, I had placed a tiny pair of white baby shoes with a handwritten note. "Daddy, I can't wait to meet you." Just as I finished setting the table, I heard the front door open. "I'm home," Zachary called out. I smiled and wiped my hands on my apron, my nerves tingling with anticipation. Perfect timing. Dinner is ready. But before Zachary could step into the dining room, another voice interrupted. "I hope I'm not intruding." I froze for a second. "Eleanor." I turned to see my mother-in-law standing in the doorway, dressed in her usual elegant attire, her cold blue eyes scanning the dining setup. She looked unimpressed as always. Zachary sighed. "Mom, I thought you weren't coming over tonight." Eleanor lifted an eyebrow. "I was nearby, so I thought I'd drop by." She stepped inside as if she owned the place, taking a seat at the table without waiting for an invitation. Besides, I wouldn't want to miss a family dinner. I clenched my fists beneath the table. Tonight was supposed to be about Zachary and me. But now, Eleanor had inserted herself into the moment, just like she always did. I took a deep breath and forced a polite smile. Nothing would ruin tonight. As we started eating, I could barely focus on the food. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched Zachary cut into his meal, completely unaware of the surprise waiting for him. Halfway through dinner, I cleared my throat. "Actually, I have something important to share." Zachary set down his fork and looked at me, curious. "What is it?" I reached for the small gift box and slid it toward him. "Open it." Zachary frowned in confusion, but picked it up. Eleanor, who had been sipping her wine, raised an eyebrow but remained silent. Zachary carefully unwrapped the box. The moment he saw the tiny baby shoes, his eyes widened. He lifted them slowly, staring at them in disbelief. Then he noticed the note. "Daddy, I can't wait to meet you." He looked at me, his mouth slightly open. "Lillian, are you saying?" I smiled through the tears in my eyes. "Yes. I'm pregnant." For a moment, Zachary was completely still. Then, his face lit up with joy. He jumped from his chair, wrapping his arms around me. "Oh my God, we're going to have a baby?" I laughed, nodding. "Yes." Eleanor, however, remained seated. Her expression was unreadable, her fingers lightly tapping her wine glass. Finally, she spoke. "Well, that is unexpected." My smile faltered slightly. Unexpected? That was not the reaction I was hoping for. But then, To my relief, Eleanor forced a small smile. Congratulations, she said. This is good news. I let out a breath, relaxing. For once, she wasn't making things difficult. Eleanor continued, a Hayes baby, finally. Our family has always carried strong bloodlines. We must ensure the child is raised properly, with the right values and traditions. I should have known. She didn't see this as a joyful moment. She saw it as an opportunity for control. But I wouldn't let her take this moment from me. As Zachary excitedly asked about doctor's visits and baby names, I allowed myself to bask in the warmth of his happiness. This was our moment, and nothing would take that away. The first few weeks after announcing my pregnancy were filled with excitement and joy. Zachary was incredibly supportive, attending every doctor's appointment with me and fussing over my health. Even Eleanor, to my surprise, seemed pleasant in the beginning. She would call occasionally asking about my diet and how I was feeling, though her tone always carried a hint of superiority, like she was overseeing my pregnancy rather than celebrating it. At least she wasn't openly hostile. But soon, I started noticing a shift. Eleanor's interest in my pregnancy wasn't as innocent as it seemed. She started asking about our finances, slipping in comments about how expensive raising a child would be and how a responsible mother should be financially prepared. At first, I brushed it off as her usual controlling nature, but deep down, I knew something was coming. And then one evening it did. It was a quiet evening at home. Zachary had just stepped into the shower, and I was curled up on the couch with a book when my phone buzzed. Eleanor. I hesitated before answering. Hello, Lillian. I need to speak with you. Her tone was polite, but something in it felt calculated. All right? I need you to come over tomorrow. It's important. I frowned. Eleanor never invited me anywhere. She summoned people. What's this about? I asked cautiously. Eleanor sighed, as if I was frustrating her. I'd rather discuss it in person. But let's just say it concerns the family's future. And since you're part of this family now, it's time for you to step up. I didn't like the sound of that. But against my better judgment, I agreed. The next afternoon, I arrived at Eleanor's grand estate, a place that always felt too cold and pristine to be a real home. Eleanor was waiting in the sitting room, dressed immaculately as always, a cup of tea in hand. She gestured for me to sit across from her. I appreciate you coming, Lillian, she said, her voice smooth. I forced a polite smile. Of course. What's this about? Eleanor set her cup down and folded her hands neatly on her lap. I won't waste time. I need $50,000. My stomach dropped. Excuse me? She sighed, as if explaining something to a child. Zachary's business is struggling. There's a debt that needs to be cleared immediately, and as his wife, I expect you to contribute. I stared at her, completely taken aback. I had no idea Zachary was having financial troubles. Why hasn't he mentioned it? Eleanor waved a dismissive hand. Because he's a man, and men don't like admitting these things. But trust me, this is serious. If the debt isn't cleared, it could affect our family's reputation. I shook my head. Even if that's true, my personal savings are for my future, for my baby. I can't just hand over $50,000. Eleanor's expression darkened. I don't think you understand. This isn't about your future. This is about the Hayes family. You married into this family, which means our problems are your problems. I clenched my fists. I won't do it. I'm sorry. Eleanor's lips pressed into a thin line. You're making a mistake, Lillian. A very big mistake. I stood up. If Zachary needs help, he can come to me himself. But I am not handing over that money just because you demand it. I turned to leave, but Eleanor's next words froze me in place. Her voice was calm, yet chilling. It's quite strange, isn't it? A woman who refuses to help her husband financially, almost as if she doesn't truly care about him. I turned back to her, eyes narrowed. What are you trying to say? Eleanor tilted her head, her expression unreadable. I'm just saying that if you truly love Zachary, you wouldn't hesitate to help him. Unless, of course, you have something to hide. I clenched my jaw. I have nothing to hide. Eleanor's smirk deepened. I certainly hope so. It would be terrible if Zachary started questioning things. Like, for example, whether this baby is really his. A wave of cold shock ran through me. How dare you? I whispered. Eleanor shrugged. All I'm saying is, a woman who isn't loyal in her finances might not be loyal in other ways, either. I felt sick. This had nothing to do with money. Eleanor wanted to control me, and if she couldn't do that financially, she would do it by attacking my character, my marriage, my family. I stepped closer, my voice shaking with fury. You can say whatever you want, Eleanor, but I know the truth. And so does Zachary. She raised an eyebrow. Do you really think that? I stormed out of the house, my hands trembling. That evening, I sat in our bedroom, still reeling from the conversation. When Zachary walked in, his face softened immediately. You okay? He asked. I took a deep breath. Your mother asked me for $50,000 today. Zachary's expression hardened.
What?
She said your business is in trouble. Is that true? Zachary exhaled, rubbing his temples. I've had some setbacks, but it's not as bad as she makes it sound. And I sure as hell didn't ask her to come after you for money. I nodded. Well, she didn't take it well when I refused. She said. I swallowed. She said that if I truly loved you, I would help you. And if I wasn't willing to help, maybe this baby isn't even yours. Zachary froze, his eyes widening in shock. What? His voice was low, dangerous. I looked down. She's trying to turn you against me. Zachary's jaw clenched, and then, to my relief, he walked over, kneeling in front of me. Lillian, listen to me. I don't believe a damn word of what she says. I know you. I know this is our baby. Tears welled in my eyes. I was so scared you might. Never.
His voice was firm.
And I'll tell her to back off. This ends now. That night, I should have felt relieved. Zachary believed me. He stood by me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Eleanor wouldn't let this go. She had already planted a seed, and even though Zachary had rejected her lies, I knew she wasn't done. And soon, things would turn violent. I should have trusted my instincts. The moment Zachary and I stepped into Eleanor's lavish dining room, I knew something was wrong. The air was too tense, and Eleanor's smile was too forced. She greeted us with a warmth that didn't reach her eyes, gesturing toward the long mahogany table, which was set with fine china and crystal glasses. The smell of roasted duck and expensive red wine filled the air. I'm so glad you both came, she said, her voice silkier than usual. Zachary pulled out a chair for me, and I sat down cautiously. I knew this wasn't just a simple family dinner. This was a trap. We ate in near silence, aside from Eleanor's occasional small talk, fake pleasantries meant to disarm us. Then, as dessert was served, she finally spoke the words I had been dreading. Lillian, she said smoothly, setting down her wine glass. I'd like to revisit our little conversation from the other day. I gripped my fork tighter. Which conversation? The one where you refused to support your husband? Her tone darkened slightly. $50,000 isn't much in the grand scheme of things, dear. Surely, you must see how selfish you're being. I took a deep breath. Eleanor, I told you before, I'm not giving you the money. Eleanor's smile dropped. Think carefully before you answer me, Lillian. I met her gaze. I already have. Her fingers tightened around her wine glass, her knuckles going white. So, that's your final answer?
Yes.
She let out a long, disappointed sigh. Then, she leaned back in her chair, studying me for a moment before delivering her next blow. Well, she said coldly, I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. A woman who isn't loyal financially probably isn't loyal in other ways either. My stomach twisted. I knew where this was going. Zachary tensed beside me. Mom, he warned. Eleanor ignored him, her eyes locked on mine. Tell me, Lillian, are you absolutely sure this baby is my son's? A chill ran down my spine. The pure malice in her voice was undeniable. I felt my breath hitch, but I forced myself to speak. How dare you? I whispered. Eleanor tilted her head. It's just a question. I slammed my fork down.
No, it's not.
It's an accusation. Her smirk deepened. Well, it's a little suspicious, don't you think? A wife who won't support her husband financially? Perhaps because she knows she's not really carrying his child. Zachary shot to his feet, his chair scraping against the floor. That's enough, Mom. Eleanor's expression flickered with brief surprise. Zachary, darling, I'm just looking out for you.
No, you're not, he snapped.
You're trying to destroy my marriage. My heart swelled with relief. He believed me. But Eleanor wasn't finished. Her face twisted in fury as she pointed at me. She's lying to you, Zachary. She refuses to support you, and now she's manipulating you into raising another man's child. Zachary's fists clenched. You've lost your damn mind. He started to step toward me, but before he could reach my side, it happened. Eleanor snapped. With blazing fury, she grabbed a heavy porcelain vase from the centerpiece. Before I could even react, she swung it straight at me. Crack. The shattering impact sent a blinding jolt of pain through my skull. I heard the glass breaking, felt the warm trickle of blood running down my forehead, and then the room tilted violently. My vision blurred as I collapsed to the ground, gasping. The room spun around me, and I dimly heard Zachary's shout of pure rage. I tried to move, but everything felt heavy. The pain was overwhelming, and my head throbbed mercilessly. Then, through my haze, I heard the most beautiful sound. Zachary dialing his phone. And then his cold, furious voice. Yes, I need the police. My mother just assaulted my pregnant wife. Eleanor let out a sharp gasp, as if she hadn't expected Zachary to turn on her so quickly. But he wasn't finished. He turned to her, his eyes burning with fury. You tried to destroy my family. Now I'm going to make sure you face the consequences. I saw Eleanor's face drain of color. For the first time, she was afraid. The world around me was spinning. The cold floor pressed against my cheek, and I could feel the warmth of my own blood trickling down my forehead. My hands trembled as I tried to push myself up, but the throbbing pain in my skull made it nearly impossible. Above me, voices blurred together, shouting, panic, and the sound of Zachary's fury echoing through the room. What the hell is wrong with you? Zachary roared. I struggled to lift my head, my vision blurry, but I saw Eleanor standing frozen, her face a mixture of shock and denial. She hadn't expected this. She had expected Zachary to defend her, to turn against me. Instead, he was on the phone with the police, demanding her arrest. Eleanor snapped out of her shock as soon as she heard Zachary say the word police. She rushed toward him, panic creeping into her usually calm and controlled voice. Zachary, sweetheart, she began, her voice desperate. I didn't mean to. I just lost my temper. You know I would never hurt anyone, especially your wife and child. Zachary stepped away from her, his face hard and cold. You just smashed a vase over her head, Mom. His voice cracked with fury. You attacked my pregnant wife. Do you even hear yourself? Eleanor's hands shook as she reached for him. I was just... No, he cut her off. You've done enough. I should have cut you off the moment you started manipulating Lillian. But this is unforgivable. Her face twisted in frustration. She turned you against me, Zachary. She refuses to help this family. She's selfish, she's... Stop talking, Mom. His voice was deadly quiet. Nothing you say will change what you did. Within minutes, sirens filled the air. Red and blue lights flashed outside the grand house, reflecting off the windows. Eleanor turned pale. Two uniformed officers stepped into the house, their eyes immediately landing on me, a bleeding, injured pregnant woman on the floor. One of the officers, a tall man with a stern face, glanced at Zachary. We received a report of domestic assault. Who is responsible? Zachary didn't hesitate. He pointed directly at his mother. She did it. Eleanor let out a strangled gasp. Zachary, no. The officer turned to her. Ma'am, I need you to step away from them. She shook her head furiously. This is ridiculous. She's lying. I was only defending myself. Zachary scoffed. From what? A pregnant woman sitting at the dinner table? The officer didn't waste time. Ma'am, You're under arrest for aggravated assault. Eleanor's eyes widened in pure terror as one of the officers pulled out a pair of handcuffs.
Wait.
No, you can't do this, she cried out, trying to step back. But the officer grabbed her arms and swiftly cuffed her wrists behind her back. You have the right to remain silent, the officer began, reciting her Miranda rights. Eleanor struggled, her once proud and powerful demeanor crumbling before our eyes. Zachary, please, she begged, twisting to look at her son. You can't let them take me. I'm your mother. Zachary's expression never wavered. He stared at her with cold disappointment. You are my mother, he said quietly. But after tonight, I don't know who you are anymore. Tears streamed down Eleanor's face as the officers led her toward the front door. Zachary, please, don't do this. But he didn't move.
He didn't speak.
He just watched as she was taken away. As the door closed behind them, the house fell into silence, except for the sound of my shaky breathing. Zachary rushed to me, kneeling down beside me. Lillian, love, are you okay? His hands were gentle but urgent, cupping my face as he examined the wound. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I don't know. He took a deep breath. We need to get you checked at the hospital.
Now.
I nodded, my head still pounding. But before I could move, I grabbed his wrist. What happens now? I whispered. Zachary's expression hardened. She's going to jail. And I'll make sure she gets the punishment she deserves. A part of me felt a strange wave of sadness. Not for Eleanor, but for what she could have been. She could have been a grandmother. She could have been a part of our child's life. Instead, she let her hatred, control, and obsession destroy everything. But I would not let it destroy us. And neither would Zachary. He kissed my forehead softly. We're going to be okay, Lillian. I promise. And for the first time in months, I truly believed him. Zachary rushed me to the hospital that night, his grip on my hand never loosening as I was taken into the emergency room. The doctors quickly assessed my injuries, confirming that while I had suffered a mild concussion from the impact of the vase, the baby was safe. Relief washed over me, but my body still trembled from the shock of everything that had happened. Zachary never left my side, his eyes filled with guilt and sorrow. I should have stopped her before it got to this, he whispered, his voice hoarse. I shook my head, squeezing his hand. You did everything you could. You protected me when it mattered most. His jaw clenched. It's not enough. She needs to pay for what she's done.
And he meant it.
A few days later, I sat in the courtroom, still recovering from my injury, as Eleanor faced the judge. She stood in the defendant's seat, her once proud and arrogant posture replaced by exhaustion and fear. The moment she saw Zachary and me sitting together, she avoided our eyes. The judge's voice was firm and unyielding. Eleanor Hayes, you have been charged with aggravated assault on a pregnant woman. The evidence, including eyewitness testimony and medical reports, is indisputable. You have caused physical harm and emotional distress to your own daughter-in-law. Eleanor stiffened, her hands trembling at her sides. As a result, the judge continued, you are sentenced to 3 years in prison, with no possibility of early parole. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Eleanor's face turned pale. No, this isn't right, she blurted out, her voice shaking. I didn't mean to. Zachary, please. You can't let them do this. For the first time, Zachary finally spoke. His voice was cold, emotionless. I already did. Eleanor's knees nearly buckled. Her lips quivered as she realized the truth. Zachary wasn't going to save her. The judge's final verdict was given, and within moments, officers approached Eleanor, placing handcuffs around her wrists. She turned toward us one last time, her eyes pleading. But there was nothing left to say. She was escorted out of the courtroom, her once grand life reduced to nothing. And with that, Eleanor Hayes was gone from our lives forever. 6 months later, everything had changed. The house, once filled with Eleanor's toxic presence, felt warm and safe again. Zachary and I had spent months rebuilding our life, healing from the past and preparing for the biggest moment of our lives. And finally, that moment arrived. One evening, my contractions started, and Zachary rushed me to the hospital. Hours later, through exhaustion, pain, and tears of joy, our daughter was born. A beautiful, healthy baby girl. Zachary held her gently, his eyes glistening with emotion. "She's perfect," he whispered, his voice shaking. I smiled, my heart swelling. "She is." We had already chosen her name weeks before, Elena Hope Hayes. Elena, a name that symbolized rebirth, strength, and a fresh start. And hope, because despite everything, we had made it through. A few weeks later, as I sat on our front porch cradling Elena in my arms, I watched as Zachary tended to the garden, something he had taken up as a way to create something new and beautiful in our home. I breathed in the fresh air, feeling lighter than I had in years. This house, once a place of fear and control, was now a home filled with love and laughter. Zachary sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders as we both looked down at our sleeping daughter. "She'll never have to grow up in a home filled with control and manipulation," he murmured. I leaned into him.
No, she won't.
Because we broke the cycle. We chose love over fear. We chose family over toxicity. We chose each other. And as the sun set over Willow Creek, I knew this was just the beginning. The beginning of a life free from Eleanor's control, free from the past. A life filled with hope, love, and second chances. Thank you for reading this story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like this story to show your support. Comment below and share your thoughts. What part of the story stood out to you the most? Subscribe for more exciting and dramatic stories coming your way. Your support means everything. Stay tuned for more and see you in the next story.